Ladies and gentlemen, listen, today I am going to be presenting to you my final presentation for English 102. All music made in this presentation was created by me, as you can see. My name is Hugh Card. Here we go. The story I chose was Orientation by Daniel Orozco. I'm not sure how to say his name, so for presentation purposes, I'm just going to call him Daniel. Orientation by Daniel Orozco should be included in English 102 section W04 because of its complex and intriguing narrative. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, for the most part, the story Orientation was just a really interesting story for me to read personally, and every time I read it, the narrative would be different. I could get a different interpretation from it. Next slide. This is Daniel Orozco. He's the person who wrote my story. He was born in 1957 in Daly City, California. He is of Nicaraguan descent. I think both of his parents are from Nicaragua. Currently, he teaches creative writing at the University of Ohio. There's not much information about him other than that Daniel loves to write short stories. Even in the interview that Michael Schilling did, Daniel Orozco stated that at this point, I do prefer short stories to novels, both writing them and reading them, which clearly means that he just prefers a more shorter narrative because it's just either simpler to write or, in a sense, much easier to curate a story, at least for him personally. Next slide. Now, Orientation. The main themes of Orientation are, well, dark, gloomy. It's very vivid. You can get a very good description of how the world looks and what your environment looks like as from your perspective, because you're the reader and the reader is the character in the story. There's a lot of good world building, as in you get to know a lot of the characters. There's a lot of information about them. There's a lot of symbolism throughout the story, and it's just very intriguing. It's a very intriguing story. Next slide. Interesting parts of the story that I decided to put on this presentation. Now, interesting parts of the story. The story is told from the perspective of a new employee on their orientation day. So, imagine you just got a job and they're showing you around the office. That's basically the main story. It's just you're getting shown around the office, but it takes a little turn and it's like, oh, I'm getting too much information about everyone. It's like, oh my goodness, So personal descriptions of each character in the office. This story provides a lot of personal and very just bizarre information about each person that lives throughout the office. Every character has something very particular and special about them. Here are the notable characters that I wrote down here. All right, Anika Bloom. She's usually avoided. She's quiet, and in the story, she's quoted to be able to predict how and when someone is going to die. And in the story, I'm guessing because it states that her palm starts bleeding. I'm guessing it just has to do with her having some type of psychic ability. There's not really any more, description about it, but from the most part, that's it. There's also Gwendolyn Stitch, who loves penguins. Her whole office has penguins. Her license plate has penguin. Her everything has penguin in it. You know what I'm saying? She's kind of weird, but she's very friendly. You can walk in, you can talk to her all the time. She's always able to talk, but she hides her pain. She goes and cries in the bathroom. She holds her knees kind of like up to her waist like that, and sits on the ground and curls up into a ball and just cries. And it's been reported throughout the office that she does this all the time, but she never shows it. And she always, sets up office events. She's always very friendly. Then there's Kevin Howard. He's a serial killer, bizarre story, huh? He's a serial killer, and they call him the carpet cutter because he wraps up people into carpets and does that. He prefers, to kill them while they're struggling and stuff like that, but that's besides the point. He only kills strangers, so you don't have to worry about him when you walk in. He's a fast typer, And he also has a huge crush on Gwendolyn. Another piece of information you didn't need to know, but we got told. Colin Heavy. He's the new guy. He decided to talk to Anika Bloom, and now, according to the story, he's doomed. Yep. He's cooked. He's cooked. Next slide. Now, why? Why should we add this story to the curriculum? Well, I think that this story could allow students to just think. It's very outside the box. There's not really a lot you can, like, what the story I chose when I did my essay was the yellow wallpaper. There was quite a lot to write about that. You know, there's a big overlying topic about women's mental health, but this one, it's kind of a twist. I think it would challenge students to write about something because every person's perspective could be completely different and there's not really a specific underlying meaning. I think it would be very good and very thought-provoking and challenging for students. Why would this story challenge students? There's several different interpretations. It has a complex narrative. There are several plot points that gives you a feeling that something's not quite right with The Office. You know, it's just kind of like bizarre. A good example of this, and Daniel wrote this a lot throughout the story, is when something has an underlying meaning, like when they said, "That was a good question. Feel free to ask questions. Ask too many questions, however, and you may be let go." You know, there's a lot of stuff like that that's like, what? You know what I'm saying? What? But I do firmly believe that this would be a very intriguing and just honestly would be a good experience to just listen to the story multiple times and be able to like decipher and skim through what you want to write out about this. What do you want to analyze? What do you want to, because it would be a challenging thing to analyze about, but I feel like it would be very beneficial. Like it would be a good learning experience. It would be everything. But as I said though, my name is Hugo Card. These are my works cited. I did use Wikipedia, but listen, I used Wikipedia to get the other sources, and that's how I got this interview, and there's not really much about Daniel, so Wikipedia was kind of like my only resource. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I appreciate you.